So, since the 22nd of January, we have had Venus and Saturn together in the sign of Sidereal Aquarius. And so, in this video, I'm going to tell you what this means for all the rising and moon signs. But before we do that, let's see what this transit truly means. So, Saturn just entered the sign of Aquarius after leaving Capricorn being in Capricorn for almost 3 years. Now, Saturn is all about discipline, hard work, making you work hard to achieve results, as well as requiring you to be extremely disciplined in every area of your life where it's transiting through. Now, Venus is all about love, pleasure. It's all about relationships. It is also the karaka, or the significator for marriage. And so when Saturn and Venus come together, although they are best friends, Saturn loves Venus. They're the bestest of friends. Saturn is actually exalted in the sign of Libra, which is a Venus ruled sign. Although this is a really good combination to have Venus and Saturn together, it also puts a lot of pressure in things that are Venus related, and things like love. Saturn here in this conjunction will magnify and really bring a spotlight to all of our blind spots when it comes to love, relationships, marriage, really requiring us to do the work necessary to be very disciplined in that area. It also takes away from that feeling of that intoxicating feeling of love, because Saturn just wants you to do right by your spouse, or it just wants you to fix things, or it just wants you to be very disciplined, and almost as if wants you not to be delusional about your relationships and look at things from a perspective of evidence, from a perspective of matter of fact, from a perspective of being very solid in your decisions and very solid in your actions. And for the next 2.5 years, we will have this conjunction in Aquarius once a month. And this is going to really impact the most our area of career and relationships for all of us, as well as friendships. But this transit specifically is impacting the most Aquarius risings and moons, along with Leo risings and moons, Libra risings and moons, and Aries risings and moons. But yeah, let's see what as well as Taurus and Scorpio. So yeah, let's see what this means for everyone's individual chart. And we'll begin with Aries. Moons, this conjunction of Venus and Saturn is happening in your 11th house, also aspecting your 5th house of romance, which is bringing a very sobering feeling and a need to be very realistic when it comes to your manifestations, when it comes to your friendships, when it comes to your connections, as well as your romance, your romantic life, and your relationships. This is making you require your partnerships to be very realistic, to create healthy boundaries around your friendships, and work hard towards your manifestations in a way that's realistic and not delusional, in a way where you can see actionable steps. And this is something that you're going to again revisit in the summertime when Venus goes retrograde in your 5th house. So pay attention to everything that happens at this time, because there's going to be a revisiting in the summertime. Off to the next sign, which is Taurus. Taurus rising and moons, this conjunction of Saturn and Venus is happening in your 10th house of career, public image, outer image, looking at your 4th house of home and happiness, which is bringing a very sobering feeling and a very realistic type of mentality when it comes to your career. Saturn here is asking you to be extremely disciplined. Although your ideas and your creativity can be at an all-time high, this can also mean that you are feeling a sense of realism, and a sense of having never feeling at peace with your creations, or always feeling as if there has to be some kind of hard work attached to everything that you accomplish. Venus in the 10th house is making you feel more beautiful in your outer experience and in how you are perceived by the outside world. So this is a great opportunity for your career. At the same time, Venus here is also not letting you enjoy the fruits of your labor, or bringing some kind of sobering feeling or realistic feeling to your home life. Your mother can also be, your relationship with your mother can be a point of contingency, if that's the right word, but I would say more of a stressor in your life at this time, either your mother, your relationship with your mother, or your home life in general. But Venus will be here until February 12th, I believe. And whatever happens for you at this time, it's important to note, because there's going to be a repeat of this cycle once Venus goes retrograde in your 4th house in the summertime in July. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Gemini. Venus and moons. This conjunction of Saturn, Venus is happening in your 9th house of higher education, as well as your belief systems. There's something around your beliefs that you're really recognizing or realizing or shifting your hopes and dreams in the world, because now you're becoming more realistic about what is possible for you and what isn't. So you're wanting to completely shift your belief systems around your higher education, around your how you view the outside world, along with maybe your family as well. So everything that encompasses your beliefs for yourself and the outside world, you're kind of like shifting, because although you might have believed that, let's say that you're 80 years old, and up until now you believe that it's possible for you to have a child at 80 years old. I don't know, maybe it is possible with all the technology that we have, but that's a very delusional type of thinking and belief that you could have. Now with Saturn here transiting the 9th house for the next 2.5 years, and then Venus sitting there with it, now you're kind of like tweaking that belief and coming to the realization that that's not a very practical outcome, that perhaps you might have to shift that belief because you're already 80 years old and that might not be possible. So anything that's delusional or anything that's not realistic and doesn't have actionable measurements, anything that you can measure in a realistic manner, Saturn with Venus is really going to require you to revisit. So it sort of like sobers you up, and it sort of like brings you back down to earth, because having Neptune there in your 9th house has given you all of these big ideas or all of these big dreams in the 9th house, but there has been no solid evidence in the practical world to show proof that this is possible for you. And so Saturn with Venus here is going to bring you back down to earth and make you realize, hey, even though you want these things, even though this is your dream to accomplish, that might not be possible. That might not be realistic. This is what this transit is bringing you. So it's like it's making you tweak your hopes and dreams so they can be more realistic. So it's bringing you back down to earth. And whatever happens now, you're going to be revisiting in the summertime, around July, once Venus goes retrograde. So pay attention to all the themes in your life at this time. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Cancer. Your risings and moons, Saturn entered your 8th house like a week ago, which will bring a lot of realizations, a lot of transformations into your life. Now with Venus sitting here along with Saturn, it's making you realize how short our life truly is in this lifetime. It's making you realize your limitations. It's making you come to terms with or sober you up when it comes to what the resources that you thought you had or the resources that are available to you. So Venus sitting in here, it almost like brings a sobering feeling, because Neptune being in the 8th house up until now, what could have made you feel as if your resources were limitless, or your time in this earth is limitless. There's really no stopping you. You can accomplish everything. Saturn will give you the tools to accomplish things, but it'll also show you your blind spots. And then Venus, along with Saturn, is going to bring you back down to earth and make you realize your true limitations towards the things that you love and towards the things that you want to accomplish. So it's a very humbling and sobering feeling, but it's also exactly what we need in order to create practical and actionable results in our lives. Because if we are not living in the reality of how things truly are, and we are living in a delusional world, in our own delusional mind, that's not very practical. And Saturn is not going to allow this transit to go by without bringing you lessons if you continue to view your life in this way. So off to the next sign, which is Leo. Your risings and moons, you have Saturn entered your 7th house of long-term partnerships, of relationships, and Venus just entered this area as well. This is a beautiful transit for relationships. This can be a great time for you to meet a long-term partner or get into a long-term partnership, but this is also a very sobering type of feeling. It's a very sobering type of time, because Venus, although it wants to bring you love and partnerships, Saturn is sitting right next to it, telling you, come back down to earth, come back down to reality sort of feeling. So it's very sobering. It's a very realistic type of feeling. Up until now, you've had Neptune transiting your 7th house, which has brought you a lot of delusional thoughts, delusional ideas when it comes to relationships, and made you feel very boundaryless in terms of relationships, in terms of marriage, or even partnerships in general with the outside world. So there was no boundaries. They were boundaryless with that Neptune there. Now Saturn comes in, and Saturn is like, you have to buckle down. As soon as Venus enters this area, Venus is like, okay, but what is practical for you in your life? You have to come back down to earth. You have to see what is the evidence in this practical life, because you cannot live in a delusional land type of thing. Anything that's not realistic, sobering, or practical, Saturn and Venus together will make you very aware of. So Saturn will bring you, will illuminate your blind spots, and it'll give you the tools to change them. Even if it's through hard work, even if it's through obstacles, but it'll give you the tools to manage them and to overcome them. But then Venus coming along with this Saturn there is really making you revisit, and is really making you reevaluate what is the evidence when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love. Like, what you can't live in like, maybe up until now you have felt like you can, let's say you're like 80 years old, and I gave this example already for the Geminis, but let's say you're like 80 years old, and you have felt like you were going to get pregnant and have a child at 80 years old. Although this is possible, I guess, I don't know, with all the technology we have now, but it's a very delusional type of thinking. This is exactly what has been happening for you in terms of your relationships. Very delusional type of thinking, no boundaries. So with Saturn and Venus here, you're realizing, like, okay, well, I am 80 years old. This might not be possible for me. So I need to bring myself back down to earth and look at the evidence of what is possible for me at this age and what isn't. And really take actionable steps towards things that are of this reality, and not live so much in a delusional land. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Virgo. Rising and moons, Saturn entered your 6th house of daily activities, health, work, daily routine, and Venus just entered this area. Up until now, you had Neptune there in your 6th house, which was making you feel very delusional about your time, about your routine, about your health, your work life. Now with Saturn here, it has brought you like a sobering feeling to this area of life. And as Venus joins in, Venus brings you pleasure, but with Saturn there, it's making you realize your limitations, and is bringing to light, is bringing awareness into your life when it comes to your routine and your blind spots, so that you can change it. So with Venus, although Venus wants to give you all the beauty and all the rewards and all the pleasure that a sixth house transit can give you, which means in terms of your health, becoming more aligned with your health, becoming more work oriented, having a better work environment. Venus will give you all those things, but Saturn is there telling you, okay, but what is realistic for you? Because you only have a very limited amount of hours during your day. So you can't accomplish all these ideas that you have in 24 hours. So what is realistic, and what is stick to the facts? What have you accomplished in the past? What are your blind spots? So come back down to earth. And it just brings a very sobering feeling to this area of your life, where you will feel like, I can manifest a lot, I can do a lot work related, but I have to work extra hard. But I have to, so if I want to get certain things accomplished in my day, I'm going to have to sleep less. So it's really bringing a sobering feeling to your work life with Saturn there, but it's also bringing you a sense of renewal in this area. So you're feeling more capable of accomplishing these things, even though Saturn is asking you to be more realistic about it. So you're feeling more capable of getting your health in line, getting yourself stronger, getting having more ideas when it comes to work, making your work environment more beautiful or more pleasant. So all of those things are present there. But at the same time, with Saturn there, it's asking you to be very realistic about everything and create boundaries and create limitations and restrictions around your time, around your health, and around your day-to-day life. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Libra. Your rising and moon, Saturn is transiting your fifth house of relationships, romance. So you have become a lot more disciplined when it comes to your children, or when it comes to your romantic life, when it comes to your relationships, creating boundaries, creating restrictions around those areas. Now with Venus here, it'll make you more inclined towards going towards finding a pleasurable relationship, or becoming more creative in your work, or wanting to spend more time with friends, having a good time. But at the same time, Saturn there is bringing a sobering feeling to these emotions, where you might want to do things that make you happy, like do things that you love, but then Saturn there is telling you at the same time, you need to be very responsible with these things, and you need to create them in a very disciplined manner. So it's bringing like a sobering feeling, like it bringing you back down to earth, because you've had Neptune there in your fifth house, sort of you have been very boundaryless and very a little bit delusional when it comes to your creativity, which is a good thing. So you've been very creative, but at the same time, you've been very boundaryless, maybe overworking yourself, maybe going out too much, or when it comes to your children, if you have children, maybe you have been allowing them to do everything without putting restrictions. Now you're creating more boundaries, you're creating more restrictions for your children, for yourself, and your romantic relationships. Taking a look at your romantic relationships from a lens of what makes sense, what is practical, what is not practical. Any relationship that is not practical, and that is not committed, and that is not that doesn't make sense in this reality, in this actionable, practical, real world type of reality, will have to be revisited. And you're not afraid at this time with Venus there and Saturn to put up those boundaries and put up those restrictions. So there's a lot of Libras who can either enter a very committed relationship at this time, that's where you're you're committing to each other long term, or you can end any relationship that's not committed, that has a lot of issues that cannot be solved, because Saturn will bring to the surface all the blind spots and everything that you had been overlooking up until now. Now we're off to the and keep in mind anything that happens now, because you will be revisiting this area in the summertime once Venus goes retrograde in your 11th house. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Scorpio. And moons, you have Saturn transiting your 4th house of home, of happiness, of your mother, and your sense of comfort and stability. So Saturn here has been bringing you since it began its transit into your 4th house, has been making you become very disciplined in your home life, your home environment. You have been revisiting or restructuring boundaries around your home life and around your career as well, but mostly your home life. Now with Venus entering this area, Venus is bringing a very sobering feeling to your emotional self. And even though you want to feel all the qualities of Venus, which is at home, when it comes to your home life, you want to feel love, you want to feel, you want to find beauty, you want to find love, you want to find pleasure, all those Venus things. But Saturn here, along with Venus, is making you question, or is making you have to revisit what is practical and what is not practical, what is realistic and what is not realistic. So anything that is not of this, because up until now you've had Neptune transiting your 4th house, which has made you feel, or has brought a lot of delusions and illusions around your home life, your home environment, and your happiness. So Saturn sitting here with Venus is bringing you back down to earth and making you realize, is this really practical? Is this really feasible? Is this realistic? And it's bringing you a very much like a sobering feeling to your emotional self and to your home life and your happiness. So this is a time when you might be restructuring, where you might be setting boundaries at home, where you might be setting boundaries within your own sense of happiness, even maybe with your mother or with your family, or just boundaries around what makes you feel secure at home and what makes you feel happy at home. So this can be, I mean, Venus here is still a good placement, because you're still wanting to find the beauty of it all, but it's more like a realistic type of beauty, a realistic type of love, a realistic type of happiness. Like anything that's not of this worldly plane, and it's not like, and it's living like in a cloud where it's not measurable and realistic real world terms, will have to be revisited at this time. So unless the Venus things that you're wanting to incorporate into your home life or into your happiness are realistic, it's not going to work. So if it's not realistic, it won't work. If it's realistic, Saturn will make it so that you have to work for it, but it's possible, if that makes sense. Now we're off to the next. Also, keep in mind that, keep in mind everything that's happening for you right now, because there will be a revisiting of this cycle in the summertime once Venus enters its retrograde around July in your 10th house of career. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Sagittarius. Sagittarius rising and moons. Saturn entered your 3rd house last week, your 3rd house of communication, of willpower, of courage, where it's joined by Venus just entered there on the 22nd, which is really bringing you a strong sense of courage in terms of you being able to accomplish the things that you're setting yourself up to accomplish. But at the same time, Venus sitting there with Saturn is asking you to be more realistic and more practical about your expectations and about what you can accomplish, what you can communicate, what is feasible for you to get done or for you to go towards. This can be in terms of your belief systems. This can be in terms of your business, or even communication, or even your siblings can now be bringing you a very practical and realistic way of viewing the world, like bringing you back down to earth. Up until now, you've had Neptune there sitting in the third house, which has brought you a lot of great ideas, maybe business ideas, maybe ideas as to what you want to do with your life and the world around you. But they've up until now, they haven't been very solid. It has been very delusional and very up in the cloud and up in the clouds and not very practical. With Saturn here, along with Venus, these ideas will continue. And also the courage for you to take action towards these ideas. But at the same time, you're also going to have to revisit and realize what is realistic, what is practical, what is not, in terms of this human reality, in terms of what is feasible in this lifetime. You know, what will yield actionable and realistic results versus anything that is not realistic, anything that cannot be measured, anything that cannot be solidified will not be able to be accomplished. And this can bring a very sobering feeling where you thought you can accomplish so many things, you have the power, the willpower to accomplish so many things, and now you're realizing your true limitations and what is feasible and what is not. So now take into consideration and acknowledge whatever is happening for you right now, because you're going to be revisiting this area of life in the summertime once Venus goes retrograde in your 9th house around July. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Capricorn. Rising and moon, or Capricorn, sorry. Capricorn rising and moons. You have Saturn in your 2nd house. Saturn just entered your 2nd house after being in your 1st house for the past 3 years. Now Venus just joined Saturn. So Saturn in your 2nd house is bringing you a lot of needing to be very solid and needing to be very practical about your finances, your family, your sense of stability, your security in the world around you. With Venus there, it's going to bring you a feeling of wanting to spend more time with family, or just become very practical and very structured around your finances. Because up until now, you've had Neptune there in your 2nd house, which has brought you a lot of illusions, a lot of delusions in terms of your abilities and your finances and your security and your home and your family life. So Saturn here is bringing you back down to earth. It's sort of bringing a very sobering feeling, very practical feeling about your blind spots and what is possible for you, what is feasible for you, especially in terms of your financial stability. Venus is wanting you to spend money on taking care of yourself, on self-care, on your family. But then Saturn along there is making you realize, wait, is this really possible? Is this feasible? What is practical for me? Should I spend this money on material goods, or should I invest, or should I save? So Saturn here in your 2nd house with Venus is making you want to invest, want to save money, want to become more financially literate, or become more financially stable it's wanting you to become very stable for your family, or find stability within your family, help your family in some way find stability. So this is a really good placement, especially in terms of your finances, because it's making you really realize what you need to shift, what you need to change in your finances to feel more secure. And it's also helping you realize and find security in the world around you. This can also be a time when because up until now, maybe you've been wanting to have a certain way of viewing your family, and it's been very delusional, and it's been very out there, but Saturn with Venus is making you realize, is this really possible for me? Maybe some of you have been wanting to start a family. This is possible for you, but up until now, probably you thought you had all the time in the world, but Saturn sitting here is making you realize, yeah, I really don't have all the time in the world. That's not realistic. I can't have a child at 80 years old. Or it's making you really view your limitations and view ways in which you can accomplish your things, but in a very practical and action-oriented and rooted in this reality type of way, and not in your vision or in your manifestations or in some kind of diluted reality that you have around your finances and around your family and around your sense of security and around your stability. Now we're off to the next sign, which is Aquarius. Aries, rising and moons. You currently have Saturn transiting your first house, and Venus just entered this area. This is a really good time for you in terms of feeling more energized, feeling more beautiful, feeling the need to restructure all of your life, feeling the need to become stronger and become more hardworking in every area of your life. Now, with Saturn here in your first house, you're becoming more practical and you're really seeing the reality of life for what it is and not for what, for any kind of diluted type of reality that you might have created in your mind. But Venus here is bringing you not only a sense of wanting to create this structured, beautiful life, Venus types of things, which is having more love, having more beauty, but it's also helping you see it in a very practical way where you can, it's almost like a sobering feeling because you've had Neptune sitting there in your first house for some time now. So with Neptune there in your first house, you've been a little bit delusional about what's feasible for you, a little bit delusional about your own sense of self. Now Saturn here is making you feel or view your limitations while still finding beauty within your life, while still being able to enjoy the pleasures of life. So this is not a bad transit. This is a transit where you can really make yourself almost like a glow up, but a very practical type of glow up where you will feel a need to change your diet, or you will feel a need to become more health conscious, or you will feel the need to implement more boundaries within your relationships, or just become more committed within your relationships. This can also be a time when some of you realize if you're in a relationship that's not working, realize the blind spots in that, or realize the blind spots in your own, or in the areas that you have lacked within the relationships or within your health or within your career or your entire life. What have you not been privy to, and what can you do now in order to change it in a very actionable and in a very realistic manner? Because Saturn is really going to sober you up and make you have to see the reality of things, and have to see the reality of things in a very matter of fact and in a very earthy kind of way, where you have to look at the evidence of what is feasible for you and what isn't. And this is in terms of your relationships, your sense of self, your career, your home life, everything. This transit is really all about you, and it's going to happen this is when you shift the most throughout the year. So for the next 2.5 years, when once a year, Venus will enter Saturn in your first house, and this is when you will see the biggest shifts in your life. As well as when the sun then enters, and any transit that transits over your Saturn, this transit of Saturn will reinforce these changes to take place. Right now, the changes are in relation to love, to romance, to partnerships of all kind, friendships of all kind, and your own sense of self and how you view yourself and what you need to do in order to become more aligned with or become more beautiful, or have like some kind of glow up or strength, or have some kind of health improvement. Now we're off to the last sign, which is Pisces. Oh, and before we go on to Pisces, I do want to say that pay attention to what's happening now, because you will have to revisit this in the summertime once Venus goes retrograde in your 7th house. Now we're off to the last sign, which is Pisces. Pisces rising and moon, Saturn has entered your 12th house, and Venus has joined in with Saturn. So Saturn in your 12th house is really making you go within and really making you have some kind of like spiritual awakening in terms of your own inner self and in terms of your mental health, as well as your physical health too, but mostly your mental health. Saturn here in your 12th house is bringing a lot of limitations in order for you to become more grounded in this reality. You've had Neptune there in your 12th house, making you making your mental state a little bit delusional, thinking a little bit too out there, which is not a bad thing, but maybe you've had a lot of ideas and a lot of things running through your mind that were not feasible, that were not realistic. Saturn here will bring a lot of sobering feelings, a lot of feelings around having to restructure your mental scape, your mental, map in order to then manifest things into your reality. So Saturn is going to help you revisit and help you restructure the way that you think, the way that you view the world, the way that you view yourself. With Venus here as well, it's going to bring you a sense of wanting to do these things, wanting to make your mental health better, wanting to shift the way that you view the world, shift the way that you have been creating your reality up until now. The 12th house is all about our hidden subconscious fears and our hidden subconscious needs. So with Venus here, Saturn, you're going to feel a lot more realistic as to healing your deepest wounds, healing your deepest fears. So Saturn in your 12th house, this can also mean traveling long distance or just like isolating yourself more in order to heal. Or this can also mean just being in some kind of place that's isolated so that you can really work hard on yourself. So this is all about working on yourself, working on your inner self, working on your physical self, and just becoming stronger overall. Very spiritually awakening time for you. This is a really good time. So this will happen once a year for the next 2.5 years. So this is a really good time to begin therapy or to go through some kind of like self-development or things like that. With Venus here, this is a time when now you will feel like, okay, maybe I will enjoy this. Maybe I will like this. So then you go for it and you begin to heal your journey, your healing journey through that. So pay attention to what happens in your life at this time, because there will be a revisiting of this area in the summertime once Venus goes retrograde in your 6th house. I would also be a little bit cautious of your spending, because Saturn will limit your spending, but Venus will want to will increase it, will increase your spendings in some way. Or just making you feel like you want to spend more on things, on like bed pleasures and on things that are going to make you feel internally happy. But if it doesn't have an outcome that's realistic, that's measurable, ultimately Saturn will make you realize that was not going to make you happy. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you have a great transit of Venus with Saturn, and I'll see you in the next video.